Now, this is an important point because people who are always concerned about us, being fascists, I have to bring this up, okay? Fascism that is created by capitalism gone awry is even more insidious than that created by communism or socialism. The reason why is that at least in a communist or socialist state, the control is obvious. In a capitalist society, they need no guns or tanks to control you. They simply buy that control. And the more free the market is, the more they are free to do this. Now, this is an important point, people, and it has to do with actually something that was brought up in the earlier part of Zeitgeist Movement, where he says, there are more, no more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. Okay, the people who have so much faith, in this constitutional republic. I still deal with these people constantly because of my former position in the Ron Paul revolution. Okay, don't understand that their government structure is inevitably going to be corrupted, and in fact, well, it basically is. And it's owned by the people that they claim they're defending when they claim, that they're defending the free market. Okay, the fascism that we have now was purchased. Okay, my opponent for Congress, Candace Miller, takes a lot of money from Halliburton. And as a result, come to think of it, imagine that. She always votes in favor of the war. She never votes in favor of coming home. Inevitably, and of course, the free market capitalists never want to ever tell anybody they can't do anything, so they don't want to make it illegal for you to bribe politicians. And the thing that I want to bring up about that is that even the Romans, in all of their barbarity, recognized the danger of that. If you were caught bribing a senator in Rome, they would execute you. Now, to get back to outsourcing, I remember a conversation I had with a friend of mine from Mexico. We hung out online a lot playing video games together. At the time, I was watching a lot of Lou Dobbs on CNN and his coverage of outsourcing of American jobs and how it was destroying the local economies. I asked him what he thought of it. He in turn asked me what I thought about it. I told him that the companies are claiming that the reason for outsourcing was that Americans had no work ethic and were lazy. He started laughing at me on the voice chat, so I asked him what was so funny. He went on to tell me that there were just as many lazy people in Mexico as anywhere else. He pointed out that what they really wanted Americans to compete with was the Mexicans' desperation and therefore willingness to accept whatever scraps from the table that corporate America was willing to throw at them for working long days with no benefits. Yes, Outfox, Murdoch's War on Journalism. Watch it. It talks about just how bad it is. In fact, people are always scared about 1984, and the idea that, there were always, if you remember the guy in 1984, his job was to essentially change the news as per the notes that were passed down from the superiors. At Fox, Rupert Murdoch and the people that work for him pass notes down about what is going to get reported, what presidential candidates are going to get talked about, and more to the point, what you're going to be allowed to talk about. And if you violate this, they fire you. Okay. Now, as I was saying, he went on to describe the average standard of living of most Mexicans he knew who ended up working in American-owned factories. Needless to say, it was not a house with two-car garage and a cable TV and a refrigerator full of groceries. The conditions in some of the other countries for workers that are essentially underbidding workers in other countries are in many cases far worse. In some countries, parents sell their children into slavery in factories where they are literally chained to the floor to prevent them from running away. Products made in these conditions can, of course, then in turn be offered at extremely competitive prices that no business can stay afloat and compete with, so they can, quote-unquote, choose to either go bankrupt or do business with these companies. When he was describing the Mexicans, he basically said, you live in a one-bedroom house because that's all you can afford with all of your kids and your wife and all of your brother's kids and his wife because that's all you can afford. That's, those are examples of just how bad it can get in Mexico. Now, even more appalling than this is the attitude of some free market economists on this issue. I remember being kicked off the air of a libertarian capitalist internet TV station. It was actually Ron Paul TV. Once for playing a documentary that exposed the inhuman labor conditions that American businesses were exploiting to maximize profits. I believe I was actually playing The Corporation. It's another very good documentary. It was recommended to me by somebody in Mike Gravel's campaign that I worked with. The argument that ensued between me and the person who did the kicking included him making fun of me for caring about people in third world countries and calling me a bleeding heart liberal. Mind you, this is the same person who said it was wrong of the United States to intervene in the matter of slavery. It's actually really hilarious to me, but I know some constitutional people who actually believe that we should go all the way back to slavery. I usually bring this up, too, because they tend to enshrine the Founding Fathers and personal property rights. Because after all, the Founding Fathers had a great idea of personal property. It included owning other human beings. In fact, my favorite of the Founding Fathers, the one that I like the most out of all of that group of people, is Thomas Jefferson, and he owned like hundreds. In fact, I believe he owned more than anybody else. Now, when you speak of these things in these circles, it's like you're speaking blasphemy for even bringing it up. It's ironic because these same people claim the consumer will somehow bring balance to the economic forces that will prevent these kinds of exploitations. I kind of covered this earlier, but how are they to do this if they are not informed? If it is in fact considered inappropriate to do so, even when people are informed, rarely does the consumer who is driven by the same scarcity-induced greed ever inclined to shop differently. The average citizen of the United States is well aware of the abuses that go into the production of products offered in places like Walmart, and now most department stores. And what's worse is the industry standard continues to drop to slavery or automation. Products that are not produced in this fashion become hard to find even if you want to buy them. And as the economy falters further, eventually you are once again given that quote-unquote choice of either buying these products or not having food and other necessities at all. Yep, in that situation now myself, because yes, I shop at places that sell this stuff, and I have no choice. I really don't. Not like as in I don't, I might lose, my expensive cell phone or something, as in I either do this or I don't have anything. Once again, people, if you want a proof positive of capitalism's failures, come live in Michigan for a while. Now, back on topic. The notion that wages will increase somehow because of all this innovation is silly. The entire motive behind using machines in the first place is to eliminate wages entirely. The notion that taxation and tariffs are the entire motive for outsourcing is equally weak in comparison to the huge profits made by employing workers for 10 cents an hour with no benefits. Not only because of the differences in the economies of the country, but because of the difference in currency values. The simple fact that companies are actively seeking to employ people in these countries on a vast scale is proof positive that this notion is another fallacy. Get used to that word when debating anarchists, anarcho-capitalists, etc. They use it about as often as the word the. Finally, on to the epically outdated conclusion. If we have devoted considerable space to this issue, it is because our conclusions regarding the effects of new machinery, inventions, and discoveries on employment, production, and welfare are crucial. If we are wrong about these, there are a few things in economics which we are likely to be right. This is the part that is the one part that is accurate, because they're wrong. And that is why our resource-based economy is now crucial. The previous notions of economics are no longer apply anymore than the elevator man applies to the operation of an elevator. In closing, this book not only fails to address the issues of the breakdown of cyclical consumption caused by technological unemployment, it fails to make any points that are still relevant to what our future holds. Yes, some technophobes panicked too early, but the technophobes of the 1930s probably didn't even have the capacity to imagine or even understand just how much more powerful technology has become since then, just as the authors of Austrian economics, communism, and socialism were equally ignorant. I got to point that out all the time, and I'd have to say, Peter, I really hope that you focus a little bit more on the weaknesses of communism and socialism in Zeitgeist 3, because as a libertarian who's arguing in favor of the Zeitgeist movement, I constantly have to listen to that because they don't ever bother to do the research into what problems Jacques has with it, and just because we attack the free market, they assume we must be this or that.